Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I call to order this meeting to launch Assembly for Peace, a digital handbook on the United Nations General Assembly's past practice on peace and security. As indicated in my letter dated 26 August 2024, this digital handbook was created in response to the mandate set forth in Resolution 77/335, entitled Revitalization of the Work of the General Assembly. I would like to warmly welcome you all to today's launch. Before proceeding further, it gives me great pleasure to acknowledge and welcome warmly in our midst my successor, His Excellency Philémon, President-elect of the General Assembly for its 79th session. I thank President Yang for accepting my invitation to be with us today. I will now deliver my opening remarks. Your Excellency Philémon, President-elect of the General Assembly for the 79th session, Mr. Mohamed Khaled Khiari, Assistant Secretary General for the Middle East, Asia, and the Pacific, representing the Secretary General, Dr. David Passarelli, Director of the United Nations University Center for Policy Research, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. I am delighted to welcome you all to the launch of the Digital Handbook on the role of the General Assembly in matters of international peace and security. Let me begin by thanking our dear colleagues, Menissa Rambally and Cornel Feruță, the permanent representatives of St. Lucia and Romania, respectively, for their invaluable role as co-chairs of the General Assembly revitalization process, effectively building on the robust groundwork already achieved by their predecessors. I should also like to welcome here today Dr. David Passarelli, Director of the United Nations University Center for Policy Research, who, together with his dedicated team at the university, brought this initiative to life within a rather tight time frame, enabling my office to deliver the handbook over the course of the 78th session. As you may recall, when I assumed the presidency of the General Assembly, I chose peace as one of my 4 priorities to guide our work during the 78th session, reflecting its foundational importance to the 2030 aims of prosperity, progress, and sustainability, and its central place at the very heart of the United Nations itself. Indeed, merely weeks into my tenure, it became clear that peace would be the defining pillar of the General Assembly's 78th session, with the events and aftermath of October 7th adding wattage to the global spotlight already turned on the Assembly's role and functions under the UN Charter. Clearly, at present, the international community faces challenges to peace and security to an extent not seen in decades. As conflicts continue to spread with devastating impacts, particularly on the innocent civilians, the global citizens who we are here to serve look with expectation to the United Nations to provide answers, timely action, and indeed to bring hope to those in dire need. In effect, they look to the United Nations to show not just leadership, but effective leadership. Given that peace and security is the brand of the United Nations, they are right to do so. And as the research in the handbook before you would reveal, there is ample evidence that the General Assembly, since the founding of the United Nations, has previously acted boldly and decisively by taking consequential action to address peace and security challenges. In this regard, I invite you to recall that it was, after all, the General Assembly that mandated the first peace operation, the United Nations Emergency Force, in 1956. It was also the General Assembly that established fact-finding missions in South Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Cambodia. Furthermore, it was the General Assembly to have appointed mediators, established commissions of inquiry, and initiated robust action in response to acts of aggression through to the present moment. During the 78th session alone, the General Assembly has addressed issues related to international peace and security on numerous occasions. From the resumption of the 10th Emergency Special Session to the many plenary debates convened under the Veto Initiative. Dear colleagues, the Digital Handbook we are launching today brings together a catalog of some past practices and more in a concise, user-friendly format. I hope that all users will learn something new and illuminating from this resource, from delegates and Secretariat staff to students and members of the public. I certainly already did in the process of reviewing the handbook's content. It sheds light on the vast, varied, and sometimes ambitious previous actions of the General Assembly on matters of peace and security over the course of nearly 8 decades. Rather than guide member states towards specific actions or conclusions, it aims to be descriptive rather than prescriptive, seeking to provide accessible information and context. The handbook covers practice through to the 78th session and, importantly, includes links to all relevant referenced General Assembly resolutions, which readers can review for specific language and precedents. While today's launch is the culmination of great efforts by many actors, let it not be the end of the conversation. The digital nature of the handbook allows member states to maintain, update, and expand its scope, and I therefore encourage all member states to consider doing so, as it is clear that, as anticipated in the Charter, the General Assembly action on international peace and security matters is likely to continue, at least for the foreseeable future. I invite you all to scan the QR code on your desk, which will lead you to the handbook's digital home on the OPGA website. Excellencies, while the creation of the handbook was mandated by all member states through the consensus adoption of Resolution 77/335, its production would not have been possible without the generous financial support from several member states, namely Austria, Ireland, Japan, Liechtenstein, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Singapore. On behalf of the entire House, I extend my grateful thanks to them for underwriting this important and timely project. Once again, I also extend my sincere gratitude to the researchers at United Nations University, whose dedication, professionalism, and strong cooperation with the OPGA over the last year have been invaluable in condensing several decades of practice into a concise, readable resource. And to the entire OPGA team, in particular, Sean Dowling, who is sitting behind me. Will you stand, Sean? Shane? Shane. Thank you. Thank you. Who oversaw this important initiative with inspiring commitment and professionalism. I express my deepest appreciation for the high level of discipline evident in bringing this innovative effort from its nascent stages across the finish line and onto our screens. I sincerely hope that this resource enhances member states' understanding of the General Assembly's pivotal role in advancing peace and security over the decades. Moving forward, I trust it will also spark reflection and purposeful discussion on how the General Assembly can continue to fulfill its mandate and further deepen its cooperation with the Security Council on these crucial matters. I thank you.